Parents and teachers, what's up? In this video, I'm going to talk about procrastination. And by the end of this video, you're going to have two things. One, you're going to understand how executive function and procrastination go together, how they are related, how procrastination fits into executive function, and how that impacts students. And number two, you're going to know my number one key strategy for working with students who struggle with procrastination and why I use that strategy, and I'll break that down for you. So, my name is Seth Perler. I'm an executive function coach based out of Boulder, Colorado, and I help struggling students navigate this thing called education. And I'm going to start off by telling you that procrastination you can think of as an aspect of executive function or of poor executive function. And here's what I mean. You can look at many experts out there who talk about executive function. You'll find that different experts break down executive function into different aspects. Some experts may say there are 3 aspects to executive function. There are 5, there are 8. When I'm doing speaking presentations, I have anywhere between 15 and 20. I do not fit in the box. I do not really care to have the exact number. I do not care to give you a perfect recipe for how things are done. I care to communicate things in a meaningful and useful way so that you can better help kids. So when I look at the aspects, there are different ways to look at them. Now, I will tell you what you will often see in terms of procrastination as an aspect of executive function. So basically, first of all, let me explain there are many aspects to executive function. Some of the common ones that you might see would be focus, attention, concentration, organization, time management, planning, and et cetera, it's prioritization, et cetera. So basically, aspects of executive function are any of the things the brain needs to do in order to execute a complex task. So for example, when I painted this room and put all the posters up, that required planning, that required time management, that required task initiation, that required task persistence, that in order to complete this project, which took me a day or two, it required a lot of executive function. I had to execute, I had to do different things. My brain had to do different things to make the goal, to accomplish the goal. So I wanted to mention the aspects really quick, because what I'm going to tell you now is specifically looking at procrastination as an aspect or a part of an aspect of executive function. How do we do that? All right, so we got procrastinate. And the procrastination is basically 2 sides of the same coin. So when you are thinking, if you're listening to somebody speak about executive function and they're speaking about the other side of this procrastination coin, what they are going to say in clinical speak is they're going to use the term task initiation. Task initiation, to initiate a task. Well, that just means self-starting, just means getting started, just means getting the train going. So one side of the coin, one aspect of executive function on one side of the coin is task initiation, self-starting, or getting the train going, or starting your work, or starting your homework, or getting started. Getting started in and of itself is a difficult thing when you don't want to do it, when it is a non-preferred activity. Obviously, your kid does not procrastinate when it comes to doing something that they're interested in, something they care about, something that matters to them, something that's fun to them. But if it comes to something that is a non-preferred activity, task initiation, self-starting, getting the train going, getting started on your work is not easy for them. So what's the other side of the coin? The other side of the coin of self-starting or task initiation is not initiating the task. And we use the word procrastination to describe the many ways that we avoid starting. Okay, so procrastination is not starting. And people will often use other words interchangeably with procrastination. And sort of lump them under these different categories, not really understanding that it's part of executive function, which doesn't help the kid. For example, an adult may say, oh yeah, the kid's just unmotivated, or the kid's just not motivated, or the kid just needs to get motivated, or this student is not disciplined. This student needs more discipline. This student just needs to work harder. The student just needs to care more. But essentially, we have the words lumped together: procrastination, unmotivated, undisciplined, and stuck. So those are sort of the common ones that we see. So on the one side of the coin, we have task initiation, self-starting. On the other side of the coin, we have a lack of motivation, or we have procrastination. Either way, whatever way you look at it, the problem that adults, teachers, and parents often encounter is that the way that they approach this does not work. It may work in the short term through shaming a kid or putting a lot of pressure on a kid, but it doesn't work in the long term to help the kid learn what they need to learn. So, what is the right way to do this? Well, the right way to help a child overcome procrastination, so to speak, or a lack of motivation or lack of discipline, or however you phrase it, the right way to really look at this, in my opinion, and I work with a lot of kids who struggle with this stuff, and I have for many years, the right way to approach this isn't to use those terms, but is to say, hey kid, how do we help you learn skills to help you self-start even when it's a non-preferred task? Obviously, I wouldn't use those words with a student, but again, the essence of this is, how do we empower you, the student, to have skills, to have tips, tricks, strategies? How do we help you have ways to self-start on a task that is an important task for you to get done for your life? Homework, responsibilities, things that lead to a bigger goal. Even though the big goal is fun, the steps to getting there may not be as fun. For example, you may want to go to college, but doing a college application is a massive job. Just doing a college application takes a lot of executive function. So if you want to go to college, you have to do a lot of things to get there. If a student wants a car and they want to buy a car, well, all of the work that it takes to get the car, that there's a lot of work to that. Or even just getting a driver's license, there's a lot of executive function that's required to doing all the steps that are required to doing the one big goal. So basically, the question is, how do we empower these students, I'm going to say this again, to have strategies to help them self-start even when they don't feel like it? So I'm not trying to motivate my students as a coach. I don't tell my students, oh, I want you to be motivated. I tell them, how do we trick you? How do you learn to trick yourself into starting even if you don't feel motivated? Because if I'm looking to help them figure out how to feel motivated, that is a losing game as far as I am concerned. I want to give them practical tools and tips and strategies to self-starting. So, I told you in this video that I would help you understand how I do that. Before I do that, I want to talk about the impacts and consequences of procrastination. I have 5 impacts and consequences of procrastination. 1, the obvious is that their grades suffer, a lot of missings, incompletes, late work, zeros, a lot of test corrections, so their grades are suffering with procrastination. Number 2 is the relationships. Oftentimes, the relationships your child has with you, the parent, there's a breakdown, there are homework battles, there are problems, there might be lying, there might be challenges in the relationship because of procrastination and trying to get them to do what needs to be done. And 2, their relationship with their teachers may perceive them as somebody who doesn't care, even though they do, or somebody who isn't trying hard enough, or is undisciplined or unmotivated, and they get an image of the student that may or may not be accurate, but often that doesn't take into consideration the legitimacy of executive function challenges. So that's grades, relationships. Number 3 is emotional overwhelm. Oftentimes these students get overwhelmed emotionally, and which leads to avoidance. So procrastination impacts them because they put things off and they get overwhelmed, and they either deal with it really stressed, or they pretend it's not going on. So it affects them emotionally. Procrastination also affects mindset, and oftentimes these students who procrastinate, they start saying, you know what, I give up, this is stupid, why try anyhow, I don't need to do this, I'll do it later, I'll do it some. So the mindsets, they start to get a lot of mindsets that help them not take action and avoid, which is the emotional that I mentioned before. And finally, energy depletion. Procrastination, really, it takes a lot of energy for them to procrastinate, for them it sort of lingers in their brain that there's something that's undone. Even if they're not conscious of what it is, they have this sense that something's undone, and it can really take energy away from them. So procrastination can really deplete your energy directly and indirectly. Now, finally, the strategy. How do we do this? How do we help us? I like, as a coach, as a human being, I'm a very big picture person. I like to get things as simple as possible. So I'm going to tell you essentially how I help students work with, I'm not going to say overcome, how I help them work with and work through procrastination, how I help them to self-start, how I help them to trick themselves into taking action. I'm going to give you one concept that I think encapsulates a lot of how I approach doing this. And that concept is chunking. I help students by learning to chunk. So in other words, what happens is that when a student has action to take and it's a non-preferred action and they don't feel like doing it, what happens is it's often abstract. So you have abstract and concrete. So the student, it feels abstract. When it feels abstract, it feels big, it feels overwhelming. They say, oh, I got homework to do tonight. I don't even know where to start because it's abstract. I got a bunch of stuff to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know exactly what I have to do. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know where I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to get this done. That's abstract. What do you think abstraction does to you emotionally? It feels overwhelming. It's abstract, it's overwhelming. Then we go to concrete. The more concrete we get, the less overwhelming it is, and the more attainable it is. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. We work with baby steps. We break it down. We chunk it down into small chunks. When a student can chunk it down into small chunks, they can contemplate, oh, I can get that thing done. I got this. Or I can get part of that done. I can at least get started. I can task initiate. I can get the momentum going. So how do we chunk? Two ways. The one word is chunking. There are two ways to chunk. I say, and there are plenty of other theorists out there, or strategists, or coaches, or tutors, or novelists, or whatever. There are plenty of people out there with other great ideas. Use them if they work. I don't really care. I'm going to tell you how I break it down for kids and why. I break it down into two ways of chunking. One is by time, one is by task. The one by time, I swear I use these timers so often with kids. This is concrete. It's concrete because it's auditory. It's concrete because it's visual and you can see it. It's concrete because it's kinesthetic. You can touch it. This is a thing. I can contemplate doing 3 minutes and 3 seconds of starting my homework. Okay, I can get the ball rolling with this. I can work for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. This is concrete. This helps people get started. This helps people focus their attention, helps take it away from the abstract and back to the concrete so that we can concretely work on a non-preferred task for X amount of minutes, for X amount of time. So we chunk by time. Again, the kid says, oh, I have all this work to do, all this homework to do. It's abstract. Cool. Can you focus for 5 minutes? Can you plan for 3 minutes? Can you focus for 30 minutes? If you watched my video last week when I talked about the 3-30-3 method, that can help you figure out how to do that. But can you do it for a smaller chunk of time? That makes it concrete. We want to get it within their threshold that they can go, okay, I can do that. Yes, I can work on math for 5 minutes. And maybe they have an hour or 2 hours to do. But we need to get the momentum going. Number two, we chunk by task. So you have a paper to write, okay? A task for the paper is to get your materials out. A task for the paper is to read over the rubric. A task for the paper is to make an outline. A task for the paper is to draft. A task for the paper is to edit, to revise, okay? To talk with someone about your idea and talk it out. These are all tasks that you can break down. So you can chunk it by task. A task for math might be doing one problem, might be checking your work, might be doing 5 problems, might be doing the front page, might be putting your name on the top of the math paper, might be reading the instructions. So we can chunk these things down by task and by time. And it is outside the scope of this video to go into extraordinary depth on how to do that. But that's what I wanted to talk about. We want to get it from abstract world to concrete world. And we do that by chunking, by task, and by time. And when you do that, you want to ideally write out your plan, whether you're using note cards or whatever, but write out a plan, a concrete plan. This is concrete. You want to have a concrete plan in your hand of the tasks that need to happen. So go snag one of these timers. Anyhow, that's all I got for you today. Again, my name is Seth with SethPerler.com. If you haven't signed up for my blog on my site, I send out a new video at least every week, and I do a lot of things to help support people who struggle with executive function. Again, this was a video where I wanted you to understand exactly how procrastination fits into executive function and how it impacts students, and know my number one key strategy for dealing with that. So, please share this. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching me on YouTube. Feel free to comment. Tell me what you think and what works for you or the students that you are working with. I'm going to get out of here. I hope you have a fantastic day. I will see you soon.